Okay, so I picked a couple of different problems to do that will demonstrate some of the principles we learned in Chapter 6. And so the first one that I want to do is get three names, so prompt the user to enter three names, and then open a file that's going to be named friends, so a text file named friends, and then write the names to the text file. That's it. It's pretty simple. So I went ahead and made a template of our our code, and so so here I am. I'm going to say I'm going to define main as as this function, and of course I went ahead and put return in. And again, here this is the best code to use for telling the compiler where to go to the main. This is just a better way of saying this right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and write some code. So the first thing we need to do is we want to tell the user some information that's going to tell them, let's enter some names. So we'll go ahead and do that now. We're going to say print, and we're going to say here, we're going to say enter friends. Names. Okay, and I usually like to do this. All right. So we throw a nice little print statement, and then the user will hopefully enter some names. So we're going to assign the first one that they enter, the first name they enter, we're going to assign to the variable name1. And what do? We're going to say input, and now we're going to say friend1. So we'll go ahead and just type that in. And like I said, I like to do cut and paste all the time because I'm a horrible typist. And so I'm just going to say, okay, let's do this 3 times. Of course, we need to rename these variables. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right. So we're prompting the user to enter 3 names. Pretty simple. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to open a file that's going to be named friends.txt. Now, that file doesn't exist, and so in Python, if the file doesn't exist, the open command will create the file and then open the file. So let's just go ahead and do that. That doesn't work in other languages. C++, the file needs to exist, or it will. You need to check and see if the file actually exists prior to it, otherwise it will fail. Okay, so we're going to say friends.txt. And okay, so here is another thing. Right here is the property that we're going to use for the open property, and we're going to tell the open function that's going to open our file. So we're telling it what the file name is. It's going to be friends.txt, and we could name this whatever we want. But here we could use the read, where it's read only, or the R for read only, W for write only, or we could also do A for append. We're going to append information. In this case, we're just going to use the W. We're going to write, and the next thing we're going to do is we are actually going to write the names. So we've declared my file to the property open friends text. So it opens the file, and now what we're going to do is we're going to say my file dot write, because we're going to use the write property, and we're going to say the name1. And of course, you should do this part here because we're going to want a new line, so it's all nice and neat. And again, being the terrible typist that I am, just go ahead and do this and go here and change these. Oops. Okay. So that does that. Now the last thing we need to do is we need to close the file. So let's go ahead and close the file. My file dot close. That's all it is. It calls the close property of the my file, so it can close it. And that's pretty much it. So now I believe we can run this and see what happens. That's fine. We're gonna. I guess we do need to save this. This script we're going to call this. I guess names. Names input example. So we'll say that. And let's save it. Okay, now let's run it. And of course, it came up on my other screen, so let's pull it over. And it says enter friend's names, friend 1. So enter friend's names. I'm going to have to check my code because that didn't look right. So friend 1 is going to be Joe. Friend 2 is going to be Bob. I guess that's how I don't care. And Sam. And then nothing happens. Oh, I didn't print anything. Oh, well, you know what? This is going to exist in our other file. So that's it, because we didn't. I didn't put anything to do feedback. So we can close this now. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Close the shell. And now all I need to do is go search for that text file, and it should have those names. Okay, so here's the text file, and it printed the names that I had entered into the text file. So they're there. And oh, it's kind of cool. Okay, so that's how we do that one. I'm going to go through another example. So I was thinking about this, and since here we entered our friends' names into a file, I'm thinking, why don't we read our friends' names back out of the file? And as long as we're doing that, I believe we covered functions. So why don't we create a function and place all this in a function instead of just putting, well, it isn't a function, but it's in the main function. So I think we should create another function and call it, I don't know, we're going to call it input friends, just because I don't know what else to call it. And of course we have to do this, and as usual it helps to, if you just do the template, define your function and pick the return. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do here is I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to just cut it actually, and we're going to stick it here, and now we have it here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call it, and now input friends is being called from here. So if I was to go back to this and actually just delete this file, let's go ahead and delete it. And then rerun this. And of course this comes up again. I'm just going to say stem, let's see, just making things up. And that's it. Okay, done. I can close the shell. I'm going to go ahead and close it. And let's go look in our file here. And here it is, friends. Been created and populated. There's Stan, Jim, and Stacy. Cool. Okay, so I just want to make sure that all that worked. We didn't lose anything. And it does. Okay, so here we are. All we did, we moved it and we entered it into its own function. And now we have friends. And the reason I did that is so that I can give an example of an input. We're inputting information. And actually, what I really should do is it's not input. We should actually call it what it is. It's write. We are writing. Write. And rather than friends, let's call it write file. Write file. Example. There we go. I like that better. That's more descriptive of what's going on. And remember, your function names and your variable names should always be descriptive, so that self-commenting is the right word. They should always be self-commenting. So when you read this, you understand exactly what's happening in that function. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a new function, and in this function, this time we're going to read. We're going to read from the file. So we're going to say read file example. And this time, go ahead and do our little return. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to read the information. And since I already created it there, I'll go ahead and create it here too. And let's just do this. Okay, so now it's going to write to the file, it's going to read from the file. Now we already have information in the file, so I'm going to comment this out for right now so that it doesn't rewrite to the file. It still exists, but we're just not going to call it. We're going to go ahead and call the read file. So now we're here. So we're going to read the file example. And so we'll start, the first thing we're going to want to do with that one is we're going to want to get the file name and actually get the information from the file name. So let's see here. What I'm going to do, because I don't like the idea of entering the friends text twice. Remember the rule of thumb. If you find yourself entering information twice, you know you're doing something wrong. So instead of doing it like that, why don't we pass it the friends text up here? So let's say that let's say up here in the main file, what we're going to do is we're going to have a variable, and that variable is going to be a string, and it's just going to be we're going to call it file name. I like that. And file name is going to be equal to, guess what? It's going to be equal to this right here, friends text. So that way we don't have to keep doing this. And we'll put it here. And now over here, we're just going to pass it the variable. And what's the variable? Well, we just wrote it as file name. Cool. Okay, so now, oh, and actually we've got to do it right here. Okay, so let's do this. So up in here, we're going to say, okay, so let's get rid of this right here, first of all, because that's not how I want to do this. We're going to do it properly. Right here in the read file, we're going to pass it the variable file name. Over here, we're going to keep it short. We're just going to say fn for file name. And so what that means is that this function must take in a value, and the value that we're going to send is this one right here. And you can see that because here we're going to say read file example, which is this function. We're going to pass it file name, which is this, and that's going to come in right here, and then right here it's going to be file name. Done. Okay, cool. All right, so that should work, and now we can do the same with the next one too. I should have done it here too. Okay. And we're going to do it right in here. This function is going to take in a value 2, and it's going to be file name. So we'll be passing file name into two functions. We can see it here and here. Okay, so now though, the next thing we need to do is we need to create the in file. So here we're going to say in file, and in file is going to be equal to what? Our open. We're going to open the file, and the file is going to be file name, so fn. And this time we're just reading, we're not writing. What else are we doing? Read the file's contents. So here we're going to say, the contents is fine. And we're going to say in file read. The read property of in file. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to print it because we want to know what's in there. And so we're going to print that information. And then lastly, what are we going to do? We're going to close. Okay. So now we have two functions that are both taking an argument, and that argument is the same argument. They're both taking in the file name object here, so that way we can do all this information that we did here, all this process, and we can now do this process. So now I need to test this code, which I haven't tested, so this better work. All right, so we'll run this, and remember, it's only going to execute the read file example because the write file example has been commented out. Okay, and guess what it did? It did that. It output Stan, Jim, and Stacy. So what happened is, let's go through this code. First of all, this function didn't run at all because it's commented out. So we ran the second function, read file example, and we passed it friends.txt file. So right in here, friends.txt came in as an argument. Then in file says open friends.txt as read only, and then we put all the contents into this variable called contents, and then we printed the contents, which is what happened here, and then we closed our in file. So all of that came from here. So what happens if I was to add another name? Let's say I was to say so I didn't even use, I'm not going to use the first function. I'm just going to manually do this. What's going to happen? Well, let's find out. So I went ahead into the text file and I entered it. Now let's rerun this and see what happens. And there it is, just like that. So because what I want to show you here is that this function right here, read file, is what it's doing is independent of this function. It's working independently. Okay, so if we wanted to do this a little bit cleaner, a little bit more proper, this one here doesn't do any output. This is just doing commands. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, but this one does. This one is going to say print file. So we could return the contents and then print it up here. We could do that. For example, we could say print read file example. And over here, we could say return contents. And we could comment this out so that we aren't actually going to print it within here. In the process, it should be exactly the same. And it is. There it is. And so what did we do? We did something that we learned in our last chapter also. We have a function. We're taking in an argument, which is this argument right here, the file name friends. It's going to be read only. We read that file. We pass the contents. We close the in file. We pass the contents back to the main function right here, and we print it out. Easy weasy. Okay, so let me think about what else I want to do with this. Okay, so another important thing we need to be able to do is we need to be able to delete. So let's go ahead and do that. So on this one, I'm going to have delete. Well, it's not really delete file. It's going to delete contents, I guess. Not delete. I don't want to delete. I'm sorry. I meant search. Search. File example. That'll work. And it's also going to take an input so I don't have to keep writing in. Remember, if I didn't do this right here, what I did, I would have to rewrite the text file up in here every single time. This is cleaner because if I change the file name, I only have to change it in one place versus in every function that might be coming in afterwards. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is, let's see, I need to open, here, I'm going to open the file. Okay, so the first thing I do is just like before, I can say in file, and let's see, do I want to call it in file? Yeah, that's fine. So in file, and it's going to just equal open, and the same thing, fn, because we're going to be using that. This time also R, not a big deal. So that line is exactly the same. So I'm just going through this in my mind. And the next thing we're going to want to do is we need some kind of description. So I'm going to say this just for description, and it's going to be equal to friend file. What am I doing? That's not what I want. In file. In file, read. We use the read line property. Okay, so now, okay, so this all looks right. Okay, this looks good. And now, what else are we going to do? Let's see here. Oh, we need a loop. We're going to be looping through stuff. So now we have an opportunity to do a while loop. So while the description is not an empty string, so basically while it's getting information, and what are we going to do? I think we need to do we need to check on something. I just realized before I move forward, I need to comment out calling this function here, and we're going to be working with the new function, so we got to go ahead and say, let's do this. Search file example. So we're going to call this function now. So in the main, we're ignoring the write file example, and we're ignoring the read file example, and we're only calling the search file example. So everything we're going to be doing is in this function now. So another thing we're going to want to do up with this description is something else that was covered in the chapter, is we're going to want to strip the new line symbol, the new line command, which is that /n. So we're going to go ahead and call our same information. So I'll explain this in a minute. Let me just type it a little bit here. Okay, so what we did is we open up the file, we read the file, we pulled information line by line, and then the line, what happens is is we assign the lines to this description value, and then we take the value of the description value and we strip all these symbols right here, because remember we have to do that in Python. We have to take care of that. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're not quite ready for a while. Oh, yes, did I mess something up? I think I did. Let's see. Okay, so this line here, I think this needs to be instead of while. Okay, sorry, I start to confuse myself a little bit. Okay, so we're still going to do that, but we're going to do it in the while loop. All right, there we go. That makes sense now. Okay, so we get our information, and let's see. And then we're going to do our while loop. We're checking to see if this is right. The next thing we do is we are going to clean our string, each line as they come through the while loop, so that's good. And then we need to do a test to see if the description matches the search quality. Okay, so did we do a search? I don't think we did. Okay, so we need to do that. I did forget to put that in here. So we open the file. I think I forgot to do a few things as I look at this. Sorry, I'm talking and I'm still messing a few things up. So let me clean up this code a bit. So with the search file, there's just a lot going on. And so one of the things I want to do here is we need to set a Boolean value so that we know that something's been found. So we're going to set our found, we're going to just set it to false. So it's going to be a Boolean value. And we're going to use that as a flag to decide whether or not something was found or not. Okay, so now we have our info equal to this, and we're still doing this part the same. And then, let's see here. Oh, we need to do an if statement in here because we need to search the description now. So now we're looking for things. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say if the description, and we're going to use our comparator, is equal to the search. And the search is what I forgot to enter, and that needs to be right up in here somewhere. It can be right in here. This can go here just fine. Search is going to equal our input, so we're going to have the user input something. And I cannot talk and type at the same time. So enter search. Let's see, search name. About that. Yeah, that looks better. Search name. I like this better. Okay, there we go. So search name. And so now here, in this one right here, in the if statement, we're going to see if the description that's being iterated through matches our search. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to print if it's found. So basically in this part right here, the search was found. And we're going to say, I guess the description of the search, and we're going to put whatever DSC was, so whatever popped up. And let's see. Also, we need to set the flag. Yep. So let's do that. So flags be set to true. What's that going to do? That is going to stop the while loop. Okay. So now let's break out of the if scope. So out of if scope, but still in the while loop, we're going to get to the next line. So here it's going to say file read line. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to close out of the, we're going out of scope of the while loop. We're going to close our file. Yeah, that's what's next. The file dot close. Why did I close it up there? Oh, I think up here is supposed to be. Okay, this is wrong here. Oh gosh, I'm messing up. Okay, so in file open. Can we look at this? Okay. Looks good. Okay, let me review this real quick. So we take in our variable, we set the flag, we search the name. We're going to prompt for a search. They enter something. We open the file. We set the file description value. Okay, and the next thing is we say if it's not blank, so now we're just going to stop if it's empty. That's fine. Then we set description equal to whatever has been pulled, and we strip it. Then if description is equal to the search, we print whatever it was. We set the flag, which is found, to true, and that breaks our if statement. Then here we say description equal in file read line. That's outside of the if statement. In file close. I think that's it. Oh, we want to take care of the situation if the file's not found. So out of scope of the if statement, which is right here where we're at, we're going to say if not found. So found does not happen. Then we're going to print. I guess not found. That sounds about right. I don't need to do that. I can just do this. Okay, and that's it. Okay. So I think that works. And it looks right. Well, let's find out. If it doesn't work, I'll have to debug. Alright, so let's do this. Oh, we have an end of line. We have an issue already, right? What did I do? What did I do? I'll tell you what I did. I forgot to do that. Okay, so let's do this again. And got something else. Okay. So let me debug and fix it and be right back. A really common mistake that even somebody like me as a veteran programmer can make, and we do stuff like this all the time. So here, I'm saying I need an argument, and that argument's going to be fn. Search file example is taking an argument, and it's going to be that text file. But when I put it up here, I forgot to pass it the variable. So I got to do that. Okay. Now hopefully all my errors are gone. Okay, so it's asking me to search a name. So I think Bob is in there, I'm not sure. And nothing came up. And nothing really happened, so that's not good. Oh, Bobby's in there. But something still happened. My little code should have come up and said not found. So that's more debugging I got to do. Okay, but let's try one that is there just to see what happens. Because I'm curious about that. So let's run this again. And let's run one that's there, see if it's even working at all. Okay, I'm not outputting stuff. Alright, so more testing, and we're back. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I found my error, and I want to show you how I found it, because it's just the way that I debug a little bit. It's a simple little thing, but it's the little things. Okay, so let's comment this out, because I added this line of code here, and this is what I would often, I'll call this just for debugging. I do this kind of thing all the time in my code, and I'll comment it like that, so I know it's not really part of the code, it's just for debugging purposes. Okay, so this part here didn't exist before. Now what I had done is I had made a mistake, and I had mistyped, and I had placed an R here. So the next file was going to be R, but description was always going to be the same. So let me show you what happens. So when I run this, and what was happening is it looks like it's going to work. The shell comes up, and let's say I'm going to look for myself. I say Bobby, and it just hangs. Something's wrong. I don't know. Well, what happened is I created by accident an example of an infinite loop. So here's what's happening. Let me explain. In the while loop, I'm looking for the very first intake here, the first line. And if we look at our line, it's actually Stan. And Stan becomes DSC. And I'm saying, well, if DSC, I strip it. But right here, say if DSC is the same as the search result, print that it's found. Otherwise, keep iterating. Okay, well, the problem is this line right here, because I have this typo with the R, the next line, it's iterating through this, but the next line is Jim, Stacy, Bobby, but this is never being set to the next match criteria right in this if statement. And therefore, it's always Stan over and over again. Now, how did I figure that out? my eyes didn't catch the R, and I was like, okay, so this is the kind of thing I'll do. Is I'll say, okay, let's throw a print statement and let's see what the computer's actually doing. So I told the computer right here, I put this in for debugging. I said, show me what the description is and what the search value is in the while loop, because I don't know what's going on. So I ran that, and this is what I got. So back to our shell, and let's say Bobby again, and an infinite loop. It's just over and over again, so let's kill it. And then that's when I realized, okay, what's causing this infinite loop? Well, what was causing it is this misspell right here, because it was never going to compare the next line to the search criteria. It was always going to be the original input, so the original stem. So stem's always being compared to Bobby over and over again forever. Okay, so for me to get to the next line, I needed to fix this this variable and make it the same. Okay, so now that's been done. Let's run this again. And now we can test it and say, okay, Bobby, and it found this match. You can see it here, Bobby, match is found. Okay, but this part here was for debugging only, so now I can comment it out. A lot of times I'll leave this in the code just in case I need to debug later, but you can clean it out, it's not necessary. So now we can run this as working code and say, okay, what's going to happen now? So now, here's the items we have. So let's search for Bobby, and it found it. Cool. Okay, so now let's run this again, and this time we'll search for something that doesn't exist. Not found. And that's exactly what our code says to do if it's not found. So we're done. Very, very cool. This was a really good piece of code to test with and to do some examples from our assignments. Because we went ahead, I put these into functions so that they make sense, and we got to use a while loop. We got to use some Boolean values. We got to do some debugging. How about that? That was kind of unexpected, and yeah, I think this was a great little example. So, anyways, that concludes our programming demo for names for inputting information into a text file and also pulling information back out.